The NBA playoffs are set to begin tomorrow, and just like the NHL playoff predictions video, I'll say the same thing. 16 teams, 4 rounds, one champion. And this could be very interesting NBA playoffs. Now, nobody has a home court advantage with all the games being played in Orlando inside the bubble with no fans in attendance. Any team can win. So what I have a power ranking for all 16 teams. Now, this power ranking is based off of the likely probability of the team winning the NBA championship. Now, I'm going to do this backward just like I did for the NHL playoff predictions last week. So, really, the first 4 teams that show up, teams 16, 15, 14, even 13, 12, those are the teams that I think don't have a chance of winning the NBA Finals this October. In fact, I believe that these teams, they could be most likely out very early. So number 16, I have the Orlando Magic. And the Orlando Magic, they have lost Jonathan Isaac and Mo Bamba for the season. I think that's going to hurt them going to this first round, especially against Giannis and the Bucks. Number 15, I have the Brooklyn Nets. And the Brooklyn Nets, man, the Brooklyn Nets are kind of a mess. It's like the Brooklyn Nets, they almost spoiled Portland's season. We could have had the Phoenix Suns in this playoff. But the Brooklyn Nets, they couldn't spoil the Trailblazers season. But ultimately, I don't think the Nets just have anybody that can even compete with the Raptors, especially with the Raptors coming off the championship. They're the defending champions. I just can't see the Brooklyn Nets doing anything against Toronto. Number 14, I have the Portland Trailblazers. And the Trailblazers, they snuck into the playoffs. They earned that 8th seed in the West. But it's hard to go against LeBron and Anthony Davis in the first round, especially when the Trailblazers don't do that well defensively. In fact, the Trailblazers, I think they have one of, if not the worst defense in this league amongst the teams that have made the playoffs, especially since the restart began. I just don't see any hope for the Trailblazers defensively, but they do have scorers such as Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. Even Carmelo Anthony is getting in on the action because Melo was a huge difference in that first game of the reset against the Memphis Grizzlies. Number 13 are the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the Thunder, I just can't see the Thunder having depth to compete with teams in the Western Conference. It just feels like it's almost hard to imagine that at one time the Thunder had Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Kevin Durant, and now none of them are on the Thunder. Although I will give credit, though, to the Thunder for even making the playoffs this year, because a lot of people, including myself, thought the Thunder was going to rebuild. They were going to tank this year for James Wiseman, or they were going to try to get Anthony Edwards. But I got to give credit where it's due, and the Thunder making the playoffs is a huge accomplishment, considering that they don't really have an all-star on their team. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think he could be a future all-star one day. I think he's one of the rising stars in the league, but not this year. Number 12, I have the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks, they have looked really solid this season with Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, but I just think that they need some more time to develop into a championship team. And going in the first round against the Clippers, I think it's going to be a really challenging series. But the Mavericks, I think they are a team to watch for about 4 or 5 years from now, especially if Porzingis can stay healthy and if Luka Doncic, he continues to take strides in the league. Number 11, I have the Miami Heat. Now, the Miami Heat, they could be a team that could surprise people. In fact, I could see the Miami Heat maybe making it to that second round against Milwaukee, most likely. But I just don't know how Miami could do in a series against Milwaukee. Could they have a chance to win a game or two? Yeah, but winning the series, I just can't tell you at this point. But I've seen some people say the Miami Heat could be a team that could be the surprise pick of this playoffs to get to the NBA Finals. But honestly, I personally don't see that. I just don't even know if Miami could get past the Pacers at this point. Number 10, I have the Utah Jazz. The Jazz, I think personally, they could be my dark horse team to make the NBA Finals. But I just don't know. The Jazz, I don't think they've looked that well ever since this restart began. I don't know if it's communication issues or lack of team chemistry. Because if you remember, before this season got suspended with Rudy Gobert testing positive for COVID-19, it seemed like several players, and there were a lot of rumors going around, that very many of the Jazz players, a good amount of them, they were very unhappy with Rudy Gobert, especially with how he was not taking the virus seriously by touching the microphones 2 days before his positive test was revealed. And allegedly, Donovan Mitchell is or was still upset at a point with Rudy Gobert because Donovan Mitchell had also tested positive for COVID-19. So if the Jazz, I think if they can get it together, we could see the Utah Jazz maybe be that dark horse team to maybe make the conference finals. But the Western Conference is just so grueling when you have teams like the Lakers and the Clippers, even the Houston Rockets, and they have a big test against the Denver Nuggets in the first round. Number 9, I had the Philadelphia 76ers. And the 76ers are a team that many people as well could see maybe being a dark horse to make the NBA Finals. But I just can't see that with Ben Simmons being injured right now, and his status is really uncertain, as well as Joel Embiid with a hand injury. So the 76ers, they're a huge question mark at this point right now for me. Number 8, I have the Indiana Pacers. And the Indiana Pacers, I think they've done really solid this season. I think they've done really well. They have the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. They made a solid pickup in the offseason with getting Malcolm Brogdon. And if you can get Domantas Sabonis back, that could be a team to be reckoned with. They can be a force to be reckoned with if they can get Domantas Sabonis back, because Domantas Sabonis had to leave the bubble to take care of a foot injury. And TJ Warren, he has been a monster ever since this reset. He's been an absolute beast. Watch out for the Pacers. Number 7 are the Boston Celtics. And I just don't think the Boston Celtics have what it takes to compete with Toronto or Milwaukee. I just can't see it with these Boston Celtics. I know Kemba Walker doing really solid for the Celtics. Gordon Hayward is as well. But I just don't think they have the depth to compete at this moment. Number 6, I had the Houston Rockets. And Harden and Westbrook, really great duo together. But James Harden, I'm a little bit worried about his defense moving forward. His defense is always a concern, especially going up against the Lakers and possibly having to deal with the Clippers. I just can't see the Rockets making it to the NBA Finals. I think they need some luck to happen. Number 5, the Denver Nuggets. Nuggets, you could possibly argue, and you can even have a fair argument, that maybe the Rockets would be ahead of the Nuggets. But really, you can just have these teams in any order. I'd have the Nuggets at 5, Rockets at 6. Because I think the Nuggets, in the 7-game series against the Rockets, I think the Nuggets could pull that one out. Now, these 4 teams, we're down to these 4 teams. From the Eastern Conference, Milwaukee Bucks, Toronto Raptors. And for the Western Conference, Los Angeles Lakers and Los Angeles Clippers. So these 4, you could probably put really in any order. These 4 are undoubtedly the 4 favorites to win the NBA championship. You may not know exactly which team could win, but you do know that one of these 4 is going to win the NBA championship. Now, the Raptors, the defending champions, the Lakers with LeBron and Anthony Davis, number 1 team in the Western Conference, Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis, and with the Los Angeles Clippers, very big acquisitions in the offseason for Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So at number 4, I have the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, the Los Angeles Lakers, they do seem like one of, if not the favorite, to win the NBA Finals. The Lakers, they just haven't done well ever since this restart. Now, could it have been sandbagging because they already knew they were going to be the number 1 seed? It could have been, but you just can't go into the playoffs assuming that you're just gonna start a hot streak going to the playoffs. You can't go with that mentality, and that's the thing that's worrying about me about the Lakers, is they didn't do so well in these 8 games. I believe they went 2-6. So that is a huge concern, and they barely won those 2 games against the Clippers without Lou Williams and having 3 key players on that Clippers not in that game, only winning by 3 points. I'm sorry, 2 points. 3 points against the Nuggets, the game-winning shot by Kyle Kuzma. That is a huge concern moving forward for the Los Angeles Lakers. But if anybody can overcome adversity, it is LeBron James. So I have the Lakers at 4. Number 3, I have the defending champions, the Toronto Raptors. Now, the Toronto Raptors, would it surprise me if they were to repeat? Not really. But I think it's going to be challenging for them without Kawhi. Yes, they still have some pieces there from last year's championship team, but I think Kawhi is what really held that Raptors team together. And without him, I'm just not sure what the Raptors are going to be like in maybe potentially a 7-game series with the Bucks or even the Lakers, Clippers, or even Rockets, or even Nuggets. Number 2 are the Milwaukee Bucks. And the Milwaukee Bucks, they do not have Malcolm Brogdon this year. I think that Giannis is hungry because he knows how close he was to reaching his first NBA Finals. And I think Giannis is going to lead this team. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me. Well, I'd be very surprised if the Bucks, if they were to completely not make this NBA Finals. I will say that now. Like before we get to the predictions, it wouldn't surprise me if the Bucks did not make the finals. Because this is the opportunity. You don't have Kawhi on the Raptors anymore, who I think has, in fact, was the difference maker for the Raptors. Because let's remember, Kawhi Leonard. Who knows what happens if Kawhi Leonard doesn't get those 4 bounces with that game-winning shot in Game 7 against the 76ers? Who even knows what happens? Do the Raptors even win that game in overtime? Who knows? And the favorite, who I think is the favorite right now to win the NBA Finals, and the margin is really small. As I said a moment ago, you could literally put these 4 teams in any order. But I think the favorite is the Los Angeles Clippers. And the Clippers, they have done really well against the Lakers this season. In fact, with Kawhi Leonard getting those offseason acquisitions in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, it's really have made the Clippers a much better team. In fact, the Clippers, I think, are the favorite. I think if the Clippers did make the finals, I think that they would be the champions. So those are my power rankings. Now let's get to the predictions. I'm going to do this really fast since the power rankings have gone on longer than I suspected. I'm just going to say this really quickly. So first round, we've got the LA Lakers and the Portland Trailblazers. Now the Trailblazers aren't that good defensively, but they do have some scores. And the Trailblazers, they do have some depth to their roster that they could compete. But I just think the Lakers will win it in 5. The Trailblazers could actually maybe force 6 games, but I think the Lakers get it done in 5. Next, we have the Houston Rockets and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think the Rockets will win this in 6. I just think that Westbrook and James Harden is going to be too much for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Rockets in 6 in that one. Next are the Denver Nuggets and the Utah Jazz. Now, this is one of the first round matchups that I think goes in 7. I think the Denver Nuggets win this in 7 games. I think this is a Game 7 where Nikola Jokic just goes completely off, and he has a 40-burger on the Utah Jazz in Game 7. Next, we have the LA Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks. Now, this could be an exciting series. This is going to be an exciting series to watch. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George versus Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic. And the experience of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in the playoffs is going to show the Clippers in 6 games. So now we go on to the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee and Orlando. The Bucks are going to really have their way against the Magic. I think the Bucks sweep the Magic in 4 games. Next, we have the Indiana Pacers and Miami Heat. I have the Miami Heat winning this in 7 games. That's another series I have going into 7 games. I'm just not sure if the Pacers are going to get Sabonis back in time for this series. I think Miami in 7. Next, we have the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. And I have the Celtics winning this in 7 games. I'm just not sure how long Ben Simmons is going to be out for. He's out indefinitely. And I'm not sure how Embiid's hand injury is going to affect the 76ers. So I'm going to take Boston. Next, we have the Raptors and the Nets. And the Raptors in 4. I think they make quick work of the Brooklyn Nets. Do the Nets even have anybody that can compete with Toronto? I don't think so. So now we're on to the second round, also known as the conference semifinals. We got the Lakers and the Houston Rockets. Now this is going to be an exciting series. Well, it would be an exciting series. But I have this going all the way to 7. I had the Lakers winning. Then we have the Denver Nuggets and the LA Clippers. And I think the Clippers are going to win this in 6 games. So for the Western Conference, we have the Battle of Los Angeles between the Lakers and the Clippers. In the Eastern Conference, Milwaukee Bucks versus Miami Heat. I once again think the Bucks make quick work of an opponent, and I have the Bucks winning in 4, a clean sweep, although Miami could make it 5 games. Next, we have the Boston Celtics and the Toronto Raptors, and I think the Raptors will make quick work of the Boston Celtics. Raptors in 5. So now we're at the conference finals now. We have the LA Lakers and the Los Angeles Clippers for the Western Conference, and we have the Milwaukee Bucks and the defending champion Toronto Raptors for the Eastern Conference. So first for the Western Conference, the LA Lakers versus LA Clippers. This is going to be a showdown going all the way to 7 games. I have the LA Lakers beating the LA Clippers and advancing to the NBA Finals. In the Eastern Conference, the Milwaukee Bucks and Toronto Raptors. In 7 games, I have the Milwaukee Bucks advancing to the NBA Finals. So now we are at the NBA Finals. We have got currently the biggest star in the league within LeBron James versus the biggest star of the future in Giannis. I think that this is what the fans want to see, LeBron versus Giannis. And in 6 games, the 2020 NBA champions will be the Los Angeles Lakers. And I'm going to predict that Anthony Davis will be the finals MVP, but they will give it to LeBron James. Even though I think Anthony Davis will probably be the better player in the NBA Finals, they'll probably give it to LeBron. So those are my predictions for the 2020 NBA playoffs. Like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.